I'm sure by now you know the biggest news across the country is that businessman Alfred Woyome was acquitted and discharged by a court for some criminal charges concerning the 51.2 million cedis judgment debt. Now, the financial court in Accra on Thursday cleared Mr. Woyome of all criminal offences.
Presiding Judge Justice John Ajet Nassam ruled Alfred Woyome cannot be faulted for the payment made to him when the state abrogated an agreement for the building of stadium facilities for CAN 2008. The court subsequently acquitted and discharged him on the 2 counts of defrauding by false pretenses and causing financial loss to the state. It held that the argument put up by the prosecution fell flat in the face of the law. In the words of Justice John Ajet Nassam, the state did not convince the court that the accused person misrepresented the facts in the payment of 51.2 million Ghana cedis. The court again said Alfred Woyome received the payment through a default judgment when the state failed to pursue the matter, hence cannot be charged with defrauding. Justice Ajet Nassam wondered why individuals like the former Attorney General Betty Mould Idrisu, her deputy Ebo Barton Odro, both of whom wrote to the presidency justifying the payment, were not called to testify in the matter. He took on the prosecution for failing to invite Rex Dankwa, Chief Operating Officer of CAN 2008 Local Organizing Committee, and other notable persons who could testify. The court accordingly discharged the accused person on that count. On the charge of causing financial loss to the state, the trial judge explained the state paid the money after a competent court had given ruling and not before. The judge asked evidence of the accused person's willfulness, adding, there has not been any sign of bad intention in his conduct. The court held it is the duty of prosecution to place all evidence at its disposal, noting that the charge of willfully causing financial loss was not proven to its logical conclusion. An Accra Fast Track High Court gave a default judgment and awarded 51.2 million Ghana cedis to Alfred Woyome on May 24, 2010. This judgment was contested, leading to his arrest. Woyome was picked up on February 3, 2012, after the Economic and Organized Crime Office was instructed to investigate payment made to him. Alfred Woyome pleaded not guilty. The Supreme Court has also ordered Alfred Woyome to pay back the 51.2 million Ghana cedis judgment debt when citizen vigilante and former Attorney General Martin Amidu filed a civil suit. Alfred Woyome is expected to pay that money despite the latest ruling. Musa Ahmed is counsel for Alfred Woyome.
I've been able to fight for the freedom of an accused person who I think was unjustifiably prosecuted for offenses that he did not commit. At the end of the prosecution's case, the judgment has indicated that the accused person did nothing wrong.
And of course, you saw the scenes at the court there. The man, Alfred Woyome, went to court and he has been set free. Let's speak to a man who was in court today, Thomas Adote Papo. And Thomas, grateful to have you tonight. Now, let's begin from here. Walk us through the judgment. What really were some of the things that the judge said, particularly as far as the man, the charges against him causing financial loss to the state is concerned?
Many thanks to you, Bryce and Ampo, for this question. Today, court usually, you would expect that the courtroom will be packed indeed. It led up to that bailing. But listening to Justice Ajet Nassam, you could see clearly that he was faulting the prosecution for not adducing enough evidence to incriminate or allow him to, as it were, jail Alfred Woyome. Remember, this is a criminal case, and for that matter, the evidence must be substantial and clear enough and be non-ambiguous to ensure that the one being accused is not dealt with wrongly. But you could see clearly that the judge took the prosecution on. I'm talking about the state attorneys who represented government in this case. He felt that they did not adduce enough evidence. Indeed, he said that their evidence fly in the face of the law, and so they did not convince him enough to, as it were, convict the accused person, Alfred Woyome, right?
And particularly, if you listen to Judge Ajat Nassam, he made particular references to the prosecutors thinking that their job, his work, their job is sloppy, shoddy, and lousy. What particularly was he talking about here?
Exactly right. For instance, he wondered why the prosecution did not invite persons like the former Attorney General Betty Mold Idrisu and her deputy Ebo Barton Odro, both of whom wrote letters to the presidency justifying the reasons that Woyome should be paid 51.2 million Ghana cedis. He thought that these individuals are critical to the case, and so if prosecution will make any substantial evidence, bear, the two of them needed to be invited, needed to be questioned, and as it were, even become the star witness in the case, because they indeed were at the forefront of the whole caboodle. Indeed, Justice Ajat Nassam also made mention of Rex Dankwa and some other persons who were connected to the case. Indeed, his reasons were that these individuals' witness would have helped prosecution's case. But, the law is, he on his own cannot, as it were, invite them, except for the fact that prosecution who are, saying that somebody is guilty or they are trying to convince the court who bring such persons before the law. So, indeed, you could see clearly that the judge, Justice John Ajat Nassam, was very upset with the fact that these individuals did not show up in court. Indeed, he also made mention of some persons who came to court and thought that their evidence was not important, and prosecution should have brought them at all. So, I don't know if going forward, if the Attorney General wants to appeal.
Thomas, we'll get to that.
I want to bring Thomas, persons out again for evidence.
Thomas, we'll get to that. But you were in court, and so can you tell me the demeanor of the AG who was there herself, the supporting staff from the department who were there, anytime the judge spoke about them in the judgment? If you saw them, what was their demeanor? How did they react to the issues that the AG raised whilst in the courtroom?
Right. I kept looking at the AG, the Attorney General, as the judge, as it were, pointed fingers at them for not, as it were, bringing enough evidence. And occasionally you find the Attorney General in the person of Madame Marietta Brew, playing with her phone. I could see or, sense that she was trying to send messages out. That's what I saw, but it was difficult to, find out what she was thinking about, or perhaps her demeanor, because it was not a pleasant
experience for them at all.
The state attorney
you saw
deal with the fact that all the charges that they brought in court and asking or trying to convince the judge to prosecute Alfred Woyome.
All right. All right. Thomas, let's wrap up on this. After the ruling, you saw Mr. Woyome, his supporters briefly describe what was happening around the court, the premises, before you leave us.
It was a joyous moment for supporters of Alfred Woyome. But let me quickly take you through the courtroom again and describe the mood of Alfred Woyome before I come out of the courtroom. During the ruling, as the judge delivered the judgment, I was trying to pick some signals from Alfred Woyome. He was relaxed much more than I thought, because he could be jailed or freed. So this was a moment of truth for him. But he realized that Alfred Woyome was very calm. Indeed, he was even
all right,
calmer.
Thomas, let's end it here. Thomas Papu was a man in court today talking to us about what happened there, and of course that particular case involving the businessman Alfred Woyome. And we'll tell you more about that. The AG has hinted or says that a government or the state disagrees with the judgment of the High Court and will take the necessary steps to go through the judgment when it is given to them and make an appeal. The AG spoke to us right after the proceedings. Let's listen to her.
We have, of course, taken note of the judgment given by the High Court acquitting and discharging Mr. Alfred Woyome in the criminal case brought against him by the state. We respect the High Court, but completely and totally disagree with the judgment. The state has applied for a copy of the judgment. We've been told we'll get it next week. We'll study it, and as a department, we'll decide on what next steps we will take. Let me place on record that the Supreme Court declared that the payment of 51.2 million to Mr. Alfred Woyome was illegal and ordered that he refund the money. We are pursuing it in the Supreme Court. We've started the process of recovering the money, and we intend to continue with that process.
Minister of Justice Marita Appiah-Ponte talking about what the state has decided to do. Look at the judgment and go back to court. And of course, it also want to take another look at that particular issue. But former President Rawlings has also been talking about this particular judgment, and he is worried about the fact that the AG's department simply failed to do good work to get Alfred Woyome jailed. Let's listen to Mr. Rawlings.
As Attorney General's office, women who collaborate as this and our chairman, and Mammy, tell back the general sentence, man. We are fighting corruption. We're not serious. We're not serious. Meanwhile, I'm a family joke. I have what positions your party here. We know how Chumo party here. Back up more. Maybe 40% Asian, 60% air voting. To protect themselves. You want one vote, well, how many? You want not the Yano. Bulu
That's right.
Are we so stupid? As the support base, the electoral college, what now no ni Yano? Mineko, ni chabo nuhe, ona no confeto mo ona. Nibiya onu, mineko ye mayueko.
Former President Rawlings there, really angry about that particular judgment. Mr. Woyome in the news there. And we want to get some more legal analysis, legal interpretations of what happened in court. Let's go to Kumasi. A senior law lecturer at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, lawyer Hans Kodia has just joined me on phone. Grateful to have you tonight, Lawyer Kodia.
Thank you, right.
So let's begin from here. First of all, tell me your reaction to the fact that the court acquitted and discharged the man in the dock, the accused, Alfred Woyome, over that particular case of criminal case of 51.2 million city judgment debt. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Lakodia.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, sir.
Right. So, first of all, tell me your reaction to the fact that the man, the accused person in this particular case, was discharged, acquitted and discharged by the court. According to the court, prosecutors simply did not prove that the man was indeed guilty.
Yeah, my reaction to the judgment of the High Court judge is simply that if you look at the judgment of the court, the judge made reference to certain pieces of evidence which, in his opinion, would not sustain those charges preferred against Woyome. In the first place, the judge commented that, in his opinion, there were some material or prime witnesses who ought to have been called.
Right.
Secondly, the judge also commented on some documentary correspondences between Woyome and the state. He also emphasized the fact that there were some inconsistencies and contradictions in the evidence of the prosecution. You see, if, in the opinion of the judge, and according to law, the prosecution has a duty to establish the guilt of Mr. Woyome beyond all reasonable doubt.
Right.
The laws of this country have set a certain standard which the prosecution must sustain. And according to the judge, that standard was not met. In my opinion, I think I should agree with the judge that the charges against Mr. Woyome the charges were not proved beyond all reasonable doubt. I agree with the judge.
Let's look at this. Some education here will do. Some have raised concerns. The public, just before we walk into the studio, some members of the public have called in to express some concerns about the fact that Mr. Woyome had earlier, in another case, which was said to be a civil one, had lost the case, and then this is a criminal case, and the criminal jurisprudence has won the case. Some confusion in here. If you can do some education here, a civil case and a criminal case. Woyome lost one and won one. Really, what is the difference here?
Thank you very much. Basically, what the Supreme Court decided was different from what was decided today at the High Court. In the case of the Supreme Court's decision, what was placed before Supreme Court was whether the contract which led to the payment was an international economic transaction or it was a private transaction.
Right.
And if it was an international economic transaction, then according to the Supreme Court, Article 181, Clause 5 of the Constitution ought to have been applied. In other words, any economic transaction which involves the state must receive parliamentary ratification. So what the Supreme Court said was that that particular contract was never placed before Parliament, and therefore that contract lacked legitimacy or constitutionality.
Right.
Supreme Court therefore reversed that particular contract and ordered that whatever was done under that particular contract was a nullity. And because the Supreme Court declared that contract as a nullity, the legal effect was that any money that had been paid under that particular contract ought to be refunded. Now, in this particular judgment of today, what was before the court was whether, in the first place, whatever Woyome did constituted financial loss to the state, and particularly whether he obtained that money by false pretenses. In this particular case, the prosecution intended to present some facts and evidence before the court to sustain a conviction against Woyome so that he could be punished by the state, either by imprisonment or by a fine.
Right.
But in the case of the Supreme Court one, it was a civil matter. And in civil matters, we don't put people into prison. And so the charges against him were to the effect that if the Supreme Court has come out to say that, yeah, your judgment, the default judgment that you obtained pursuant to that particular contract was an illegal contract, and therefore refund the money. The state was saying that you took that particular money illegally, and there was no contract in existence. So let us also try him and put him into prison.
Right.
And the judge said there was no evidence to sustain that he had committed that offense. However, the Supreme Court decision was to the effect that once you took that money, or once that particular contract constituted an international economic contract, Parliament ought to have given an approval. And for failure to do that, that had been reversed. So there's no contradiction here. In the civil jurisdiction, you prove the person's guilt on the preponderance of the probabilities. In the case of the criminal side, you only prove it beyond all reasonable doubt. The two are entirely different.
They're entirely different. So another bit of clarification here. So in this particular one, the judge was more particular about the freedom or the liberty of the accused person in the dock.
Yeah, in the case of the Supreme Court was not concerned with whether Woyome had committed any crime or not. That was not the issue placed before the Supreme Court.
Right. And
it was also not to be decided by the Supreme Court whether whatever Woyome did constituted an offense leading to financial loss to the state. All that the Supreme Court decided was the constitutionality of that contract. And the Supreme Court said that contract was an international contract, and therefore parliamentary ratification under Article 181 Clause 5 ought to have been obtained.
Right.
And for failure to comply with that mandatory constitutional provision, whatever was done under that contract was a nullity. But in this particular case, that is today's case, the court wanted to decide whether Woyome had obtained that particular money by false pretenses. And if the court had said so, the legal effect would have been go to prison, or you are sentenced to a fine,
right,
or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Let me pick your brains on this once we get ready to wrap up this conversation. The judge, Justice Ajat Nassam, described the work of the prosecution as sloppy, shoddy, and lousy. Does this make the appeal of the AG, which has sent a signal it will appeal, does it make it any better? Does it give it any advantage?
Well, I wouldn't say so. In fact, a single justice sat on the matter, and according to the judge, by his assessment and evaluation of the evidence put on his table by the prosecution, he was the opinion that serious work was never done. That is his opinion. And in law, the judgment is presumed to be correct until it is reviewed or reversed. But then, when they appeal, the matter will go before 3 justices of the Court of Appeal.
Right.
They are going to also look at the evidence placed before the court, the lower court, and they will also form their own opinion, independent opinion, and see whether what the conclusion that the judge came to was, in fact, in line with the evidence before him, or whether the judge did not evaluate the evidence well, and also. So the 3 judges are going to look at it. So the comments by the judge may not necessarily influence the appellate court. But then, if what he said is correct, then the appellate court may come to the same conclusion at the end of the day.
And so,
yeah, so I think that it may not necessarily be a flaw if they should appeal. But if, as I said, if those facts and those comments by the judge are correct, then if you take it to the Court of Appeal, you are likely to meet the same conclusion by the appellate courts.
Finally, the AG has hinted of appealing. What are the processes? Is there a time limit, a time frame within which the AG has to appeal? If he or she doesn't, then the case is closed.
When a high court delivers a judgment, you have 3 months to appeal against it.
Right.
And then if you are unable to comply with that mandatory period, you may apply for an extension of time within 6 months, and then you can appeal against it if you are granted leave by the court or by a higher court. So they have a time limit to appeal against it if they so desire.
Grateful to you. Lawyer Hans Kweju Kudia is a senior law lecturer at the Faculty of Law, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology there, talking to me about a great judgment today. Alfred Agbeshi Woyome in the 51.2 million cedi judgment that he is a free man, even though, of course, the AG says we're still pursuing him because he has to refund some money. We'll tell you about that particular development more, but that's how we're wrapping up on the big